Welcome back. Today we're shining a spotlight on authors in your area. We're fortunate to have Sarah Grunder Ruiz in the studio to tell us about her work. And Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I know so many people who want to be a writer, but they never follow through. Let me ask you, give us a little background on yourself. I mean, I'll ask you the obvious. When did you know you wanted to be a writer?
I always knew that I wanted to be a writer. Since I was a kid, I've always loved books, and I really like entertaining people, making them laugh, having a good time. So I just always was writing stories, even as a little kid. I don't remember learning that writing was a job. I just knew I always wanted to do it.
You know, I've always been envious of individuals who are able to do that, but also there's this connection you make with that reader. You know, you paint this picture in the mind. Seems so extraordinarily difficult to do. Does it come easy to you?
It doesn't. And a lot of that is because I don't have a mind's eye. I can't actually see imagery in my head. So that for me is actually a lot of a challenge. And for my books, I focus a lot more on the emotion that is felt. Oftentimes I will overwrite the actions that the characters are doing and the description, and then I will go through and revision and take it out, just because I need all those extra details to get a feel for the scene in my mind, because I actually can't visualize it. So I'm jealous of people who can see anything in their heads.
I love books, I love reading, I love being taken someplace in the mind, and as I said, I'm envious of people who can do that. Now, how many books have you written so far? And tell us a little bit about them.
Would you like to know about only the published books or the unpublished ones too?
Well, let's start at the unpublished. That's interesting, because I know a lot of people probably are wondering, I don't have a clue how you get a book published today.
Yeah.
And I know it's not easy. So let's start with your trials and tribulations. Where did you start? How did it go for you?
And most authors I know do have what we call like a drawer book. So a book that doesn't go anywhere and just ends up in the drawer or on the shelf. And for me, I did my MFA in fiction writing at North Carolina State University, where I now work. And during that time, I wrote a novel, a women's fiction novel, that was my thesis. And my final year, I submitted that to literary agents. So those are people who will represent you in your career and send your book to editors that they think would like it. So I signed with my literary agent, who is wonderful, I adore her. And she sent that novel to a lot of editors, and they all were like, meh. They thought it was okay, but nobody wanted to buy it. So that book never sold. We tried to sell it for, I think, about 6 months, and then my agent called me and said, hey, I think it's time to, put this one on the shelf. What are you working on? So I wrote 100 pages of another book, and I sent that to my agent, and she emailed me back and was basically like, no, this is not good.
How do you take that?
I really appreciate my agent's honesty. Mm-hmm. And when she told me that, of course I was upset, but mostly because it felt like a failure. And when she told me that she didn't think she could sell that book, but that I could finish it if I wanted to, I realized that I actually really hated that book. And I spent 4 months on it, wrote 100 pages, and just struggled to really connect to it. And so after freaking out for about 48 hours, because my first book didn't sell, my agent did not like the 100 pages of the second book I wrote. I just thought, this is never gonna happen for me. And I actually, that weekend I had read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, which is all about creativity and ideas and what ideas find you, how to live a creative life. And part of that book talks about how there are some ideas that don't really belong to you, like they're not yours. And I realized I wasn't writing for myself. I wasn't writing something that I would enjoy or even my friends would enjoy. I was writing what I thought people would want from me. And so after that, I decided I'm just gonna write a book that feels like me, that's entertaining to me. And I actually wrote it for my best friends. They read every draft that I write. So if I can come up with a joke that Danielle will think is funny, it's a lot easier than trying to come up with a joke that everybody will think is funny. So I think a week later, I had the idea for my first published novel, Love, Lists, and Fancy Ships. And I wrote that book in 3 months. It was like fire. I just wanted to have a lot of fun. And that's what I did. And I think it worked out. I think you can tell when a writer is having fun. So that's how I got published. And that book is actually, it comes from a family story. So when I was really young, and I don't remember this, my nephew passed away when he was 12. And that summer, my aunt and uncle sent his siblings to stay with my family in Florida. And my mom is the quintessential fun aunt. So in the summers, when my cousins would come down, she'd take us to the beach, museums, we'd just have a great time. And I always remember my mom talking about that summer as being this strange mix of, oh, it's a fun summer with your aunt, your fun aunt in Florida. But also this intense grief that would come up because their brother had just died. And that always really struck me, and that was the seed for Loveless and Fancy Ships, which is about Jo Walker, a yacht stewardess, whose nieces come to stay with her the summer after her nephew passes away. And she has a bucket list to complete by her birthday, and shenanigans ensue. She may or may not fall in love. She does, not to be a spoiler, but that's kind of the real seed of that story.
So you're pulling from inspiration life events. Really?
That book, yes. I feel like
is
every
that true
book,
of the other books?
With my second book, that one is a little bit more interesting in that the inspiration were the characters. So my second book, Luck and Last Resorts, is about the best friend of the main character from the first book. And she and one of the other characters, he's a yacht chef, they have a very contentious relationship. And you're not sure if they hate each other or they love each other or both. And I actually didn't know what their deal was in the first book. I was just basing them off of Ben and Kate from Below Deck because I thought they had a really fun, do they love each other, hate each other vibe. And so I tried to replicate that in the first book, but I had no idea what was really going on with them. So I decided I wanted to find out because people really loved the character of Nina, who is Joe's best friend from the first book. So I wrote a book to find out what was going on with them, and that was a lot of fun for me.
So for folks who are thinking about being a writer, obviously got to take criticism.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, how many writers actually succeed in getting published? Like yourself, it would seem like it's extraordinarily difficult to do. Is it?
Yes, it's a challenge, and I think the biggest part of the challenge is not giving up because you will face rejection. I have, and a lot of people seem to think that once you get published, you have made it, you're there, but you still face rejection.
Now, you mentioned that you were also a teacher at NC State. You teach writing, which is, tell me about it.
So I did my graduate degree at NC State, like I said, and I just never left because I love it there so much. And I teach English 101, first year writing, which is, of course, everyone's favorite class, but we actually have a lot of fun. And teaching is my day job. It's my full-time job. I can't see myself ever leaving. It does give me a lot of flexibility for writing, especially teaching college. But most days I wake up at 5 to write. So I will write before my kids get up. I'll write before work. And I really enjoy teaching academic writing, English 101, because it's so different from creative writing. And it allows me to use different skills, talk about a different side of writing. I love my students. They are a big inspiration for me. They're a lot of fun. I learned so much from them. I hope they keep me young and hip, which would be good for my career.
Who doesn't want to be young and hip?
Who
right?
doesn't want to be young and hip?
Well, I know you have a third book coming out as well, and we don't have a lot of time, but maybe where are you at in it? I mean, is it ready to go, or are you still writing it?
That's actually a book I needed an extension on. It was initially supposed to come out in July. We pushed it to January, so there was a lot of pressure with that one. It's mostly done. I'm waiting for feedback from my editor right now, and then there'll be line edits and past pages, but the story is pretty much put together at this point.
Awesome. For folks who would like to read your books, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to do that is to buy it from wherever you prefer to buy books.
It's everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
Well, man, I'll tell you what, well, congratulations. I mean, that's kind of a dream coming true for you.
It definitely is, yeah.
And that's awesome. And I appreciate you taking time with us today.
Thank you for taking time to talk to me.
Stick around because we'll be right back with another talented local author.